Welcome to Information Friday. I'm Anna Illis.
And I'm Homeros Moon.
On today's show, we will be featuring women since it was International Women's Day yesterday.
I'm just curious, Anna, how did International Women's Day start?
Well, according to the UN, it actually started in 1909 when the first National Women's Day was observed in the U.S., where women were protesting terrible factory conditions. I think this was probably after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And then, much later, there was 1975, there was the International Women's Year, according to the United Nations, and then this is when the International Women's Day started to be celebrated on March the 8th.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting to me how in America, International Day started in 1909.
Yeah.
And then it grew on from there. I mean, if anyone knows American history, whenever we have wars or such as World War I or II, that opens to more control for the government.
Yeah.
That also happened when the men left home and women took over the jobs and roles. That's when allowed the amendments for women to get rights. So it's very interesting to me how International Women's Day started in America, and then throughout the centuries, it started in other countries. And by 2014, became officially, I want to say, very well-rounded internationally.
Yeah, I've looked on NPR, and there were protests in Spain, in Pakistan, Uganda, Russia, South Korea, all over the world, really, even in places where you might not expect it to happen.
How do you celebrate International Women's Day?
Well, I celebrated it by staying home.
Mm-hmm.
But I did wear pink.
So you just treat yourself and relax.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a beautiful
Just allow
thing.
myself to do some self-care. I listened to a lot of music to make sure I was feeling okay. Because life can be stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
I celebrate it just by being more... I mean, of course, any man in this world should be very generous and very... the word to be appreciative of women in an everyday basis. But, like any society holiday, you're going to go a little extra mile that day. And that's all the smallest of what I can do. Just as much appreciation and respect as possible.
Yeah, one of my classmates in math class, she was wearing different pins for women's rights. That was pretty cool too.
Which, speaking of, just came to mind, some of the women at OSA are very close to my heart. Some of the women in the office, ever since I was just, little kid, they've always been like the auntie, the second hand. It's not necessarily just a relationship of them looking after for me. It's also, it goes both ways. It's checking up on them. How are you doing? And it's just a beautiful thing to grow with someone at two very different age ranges and have that friendship that kind of transformed to more. Because as they say, it takes a village. But who's some women at OSA that you very much appreciate?
Well, I gotta start out with Miss Sippin. I gotta say, in the literary arts community, she's going to be she is the resident teacher of color in the literary arts community, and she's the one who's going to get cut, unfortunately, because of the budget cuts. Right, where was I? She just brings in so much heart and passion into her work, and has so much belief in her students. It's just amazing to have had a class with her. It's an honor. And even when we were discussing you're gonna get cut and that's terrible, she was bringing out the fact that she is still very fortunate because she still is going to have health care, and there's some people who are getting cut and they're not gonna have those privileges.
Well, on this episode of Informational Friday, and on the subject of Women's International Day, some other women that we can look forward appreciation to. Right here in Oakland, the mayor of Oakland has been warning our Latin community of ICE raids going
We're coming in.
And to define that, for those of you who don't know, that's when the government sets up raids to basically kidnap immigrants in America and deport them. La migra, as they say in Espanol. And
I gotta say, Jeff Sessions, just the way he talks about illegal immigration, even the words he uses, like describing them as illegal immigrants instead of undocumented, is quite, abrasive. And there's kind of this apathy and, like, just the way that Jeff Sessions handles this issue, I'd say, is very insensitive. I don't think he understands what it's like to be in California, or that California was pretty much stolen from Mexico.
Yes, and as I'm looking here on her Twitter earlier, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Leanne? Apologies. She said in her Twitter, "My intention was not to get caught in a legal debate. I would do it again." And I think, that's a very beautiful thing, because I remember having a conversation with her earlier, it was years ago. And, she said some things of what, how she was going to stand by Oakland, and it was very, I don't know, you never believe that. You're like, okay, well, every single mayor makes a promise, only so very few does go out. And I do see this as a person of color, it is a very, very respectable and honorable thing to go out and warn the community of Oakland.
Yeah, I'd say it was a very noble act to do and very considerate, because the immigration system in the United States is a mess. Like, unaccompanied minors can get deported. And there's this one extreme example where someone was deported from where they were born up in America somewhere. They were deported to to Mexico, and then the Mexican government deported him to Guatemala when he was an American citizen. He was an American citizen, and they deported him. He was found sleeping on a bench in a park, according to Adam Ruins Everything.
Yes. And a quote from Shaft that's interesting, because, the reason why we have International Day, one reason, is, of course, honor respected women, because the ideas and mindsets are completely opposite, such as from what Mayor Shaft said, "How dare you vilify members of our community by trying to frighten the American public into thinking that all undocumented residents are dangerous criminals."
Yeah, like, I oftentimes I'd say, especially in the news, minorities are often generalized because we cover, like, the few people that, like, stand out as criminals, but we don't, like, look at the community as a whole. Like, this isn't just for, like, racial minorities, it's for all sorts of minorities. And just zeroing in on the bad apples in a beautiful barrel of people.
Yes. And it's very interesting to me, because we have this situation going on in Oakland, but somewhere else in the Bay Area, San Francisco, we have another mayor, London Breed, or I should say former mayor. She was only mayor of San Francisco from December 12th, 2017 to January 23rd, 2018, so that's only a little over a month. And basically, they accepted her, and right after this little over a month time period, replaced her with a white man. Which, I don't know. The only question, the first thing that comes to mind is just why. Why, if you're going to play this game and play it so, why even accept in the first place, just to go the extra step?
So I'm guessing that since she was a woman of color, she was robbed of her post as mayor. I gotta say, that's quite messed up, and it's oftentimes, especially women of color, they have the intersections of being a woman and of color. Minorities are often underprivileged. Like, it makes me think back to Miss Sippin and how she's gonna get cut, and she's a woman of color.
Yes, but just not to focus on the negatives though. In November 2012, she was elected on the board of District 5. If you look at her career, she has done many amazing things, and she's built herself up to this platform, and she's helped out a lot of people. And with her intersections and everything else, she had a message of wanting to help the people of San Francisco, and I think that's something very interesting that,
Should we move on to the next topic? Are you doing all right?
I think you should discuss all the other women that are running for
yes,
mayor in
definitely.
San Francisco.
it's a really long list. So we got Angela Alito. Alioto, sorry. She's a Democratic politician and attorney, and her two goals are to fight crime and help the homeless. Then we got London Breed, who is serving as active mayor of San Francisco.
That's the one we were just talking about.
Yeah, that was the one. And then we got Jane Kim. She says she has fought to expand the access to affordable housing, protect renters, includes the income gap, improve public schools.
So what is this saying?
Amy Farah Weiss, she wants to lead the city's departments, budgeting and commission appointments, and implementing comprehensive platform for equity. Then we also got Ellen Lee Zhu, who has been working as a public servant, and she wants to tackle drug abuse problems and homelessness and affordable housing for families, which all sounds pretty amazing.
I think it's very beautiful that we have so many women.
More women than men running.
Yes, and that also, you know, this is a time where you can generally see women running for office positions, whether it be mayor, can now technically say president, and governor and everything else. Do you think this has anything to do with Hillary? I just want to, you know, date back a second and just reflect and think on, do you think that with as many positions we see now running forward, do you think it has anything to do with Hillary and her campaign?
I'd say it definitely does, because Hillary Clinton, she showed that it is possible for a woman to get through to being a legitimate presidential candidate. Like, she got all the way up there, that it's kind of like she's already forged this path. We just have to get to the point of putting someone who is a woman into the presidential office. We haven't gotten there yet, but I certainly will someday. Mm-hmm. Because now that we see Trump and all the sexism and racism he represents, we're really trying to fight back here.
And I think it also is something to see, you know, not necessarily, though you could say the win and loss between Trump and Hillary, but really just the fact of, yeah, the results happened, but it's not a moment to look down on it. It's a moment. It was really a moment for inspiration, and it showed that, you know, as you said, it can get to that level, and that, you know, not everything comes so easy. Yeah, it would have been a fantasy. I feel like it would have, you know, you have to think about not everything in our history or present day. We can't just think it's going to be a fantasy. It would have been, you know, a dream come true to have 8 years of a black president and then another 8 years of a female president. But
oh my God.
Sadly, within politics, you know, the result is that's not how it goes. You go 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And, you know, it's a time of resiliency.
It's still 1 step forward, let's hope. Let's just hope.
No, there's no 1 step forward with Trump. But the only 1 step forward would be is resiliency and people joining together, as
Definitely.
you said. And I don't know, hopefully people can... How do you think this election should go, though? I'm curious. Because my opinion, I'm going to just be honest, I really want London to get her spot back because, I mean, that's just absolutely wrong and disrespectful and honestly disgusting in my mouth.
Yeah, I gotta say.
But, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's beautiful that everyone else is running. But at the same time, that's really shameful and discredited.
Yeah. I gotta say, I think, like... Considering that this is San Francisco, where everyone's pretty liberal and, like, you know, knows the problems that are going on, I think we would be good with just any of them. Mm-hmm. Kind of like if, you know,
No, I wouldn't say any of them because at the end of the day, you know, each mayor is going to have their own intersections of their own values, and they might go into the office position with a heart of gold, but as soon as they start seeing all that green and there's a lot of corruption in being mayor. There's a lot of corruption. And that's why, you know, cities like San Francisco with the history of being such a booming town from the 49ers to what it is today of just being business, stocks and everything else. All that corruption over time of who is in charge. That's just what we see you know, in Civic Center and other parts of the poverty rate within San Francisco, and how on the other half of it people can live sweet, bittersweet on their little San Francisco hill and look down on everyone else.
I gotta say, I heard of a couple that was trying to buy an entire street in San Francisco, and I'm kind of like, wait, hold on, why do you need that when there's some people sleeping on the streets?
Well, that's just how
Rich people and their greed.
Yes. But, I mean, upon other news within San Francisco and these mayors, who do you think, if you had to, who would be your number one?
I'd say London Breed should get her post back because it was robbed from her. It was taken away, and now it's put on the line. I don't think that's necessarily very fair.
Yes. And then I see other mayors like Jane Kim want to work on making San Francisco innovative and work more on the colleges and with people of the younger crowd as she worked with other schools. So that's also something very important, you know.
Yeah, and it's important to improve public schools as well because, you know, the future of our generation is within the children.
And it gives me hope when I see women of power because I have to think about, you know, there are places that are under a matriarch society, and if I'm pronouncing that word correctly.
Yeah, matriarchy.
Matriarchy, and for those of you who don't know the definition, that's a system where the laws and the ownership go on the women's behalf. So through the mother, grandmother, daughter, but socially everyone's equal. You know, there's really no sexism. There's no disrespect. It's all about understanding, and those societies thrive on a whole nother level. And it's very interesting to me how in matriarchal societies everything thrives, but in our Western civilizations where men get the laws, I mean, we obviously see what happens, and obviously things need to change. How does that, how does that play in your head, that matriarchal societies are thriving way more than patriarchal societies?
Well, I gotta say, just in general, the way women are conditioned to be like and are raised to be in modern society is to be understanding and nurturing and communicative and not really like in for yourself, kind of like the norm with like, you know, men.
That kind of confuses me just on the fact that matriarch societies are about women in power, so it wouldn't make sense to me for them to be about influencing women. I think isn't it more based on just the female energy and spirit and allowing them to thrive and
more
be more
communal
open
and cooperative.
Yes. And, you know, I think feminine energy is such a powerful, powerful thing. And I think when it comes to community, there's more leadership. I think there's more compassion, more care, more strength, because women have way more strength than a man will ever know.
I gotta say, our pain tolerance is higher because you have to go through childbirth.
Exactly. And I'm just speaking, everything I'm saying, and I'm going to say from this show, honestly, is just becoming a fact of just being an educated man, because just literally just my whole life, I've always just been raised to respect. And I always will, I have no problem bowing down. I have no problem acknowledging the accomplishments. And I'm a person too, I don't call it history, I call it ancestry. Of
that's
course,
a better word, actually.
Of course, if it's on a specific beautiful woman or female or whatever of that umbrella, I'll say herstory. But in general, I just call it ancestry because, you know, history has the westernization twist on it. Herstory is within the female energy, and ancestry is just what we have know on an internal compass, I feel, you know, and what is the ultimate truth. International Women's Day. There was also, did you see, are there any parades or festivals that you know of or go on? Like any feminist things? Or?
I've been scrolling through the New York Times and NPR, and there's just, I already mentioned in how many different places there were protests and women getting out in the streets and banging pots and not being afraid to, you know, talk about rape and abuse and protesting against it very vehemently.
We also have another, you could say foreign or ethnic countries, depending on your vernacular, near India, the Middle East, and
in that
on that hemisphere.
In that vague region.
Of women such as putting up X crosses with their wrist and protesting against rape, and certain places within India, they have entire female police squads, which allows the women officers to go on patrols, you know, throughout the villages, which how police officers should be. Police officers should be way more.
They should be there to protect the
communal,
people and not,
like
make
you should
people
see a
feel
police
scared.
officer walk down the street and know their name and
Yeah.
have a relationship with them. And with these
And
female,
not be afraid.
exactly, with these female police officers, they allow the women because they would refuse to talk to the male police officers.
Mm-hmm.
They were afraid, which obviously we know why, because
Yeah.
the men would talk to the men and do more harmful stuff. But in this situation of female police officers,
Easier to trust.
exactly, it's again matriarchy coming up again. It's the allowance of you could confide, and it's on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's women serving women.
Exactly. And I could see the opposite side of it, and it is kind of sad that we need to go as far as to have the same in order to commune and go in this. But at the end of the day, it makes sense. It's what has to happen because of the society, and I think for how do you think that would work out in America if we had let's just start off with female police officers, entire squadrons of just female police officers from all different backgrounds.
I think there would be of all different backgrounds, like really diverse.
Yes, of all different. I mean, just police officers are based off the community. So if it's in Oakland, we're gonna have different diversity. If it's in somewhere else, it's not.
Albany,
but just how do you think all female squadrons would play out?
I'd say it would be a lot less likely that there would be police violence because the community is more tight knit, and the people who are serving the community are from there. They understand the dynamic that's going on. They understand the neighborhood. They understand the people there. There's a deeper connection. I think there would be a lot less police violence and a lot less need to have things escalate to that point.
I agree. I also see it as we also have it. I mean, I'd feel more comfortable going to a female police officer any day. I'm just going to say that. But also on the fact that, I see, because they're going to have to train the female police squadrons as the exact same. But I feel within those female police squadrons, I just know, again, with the female energy of what we see from the other examples and to what it could do in America, I honestly see speaking out on more risings and saying, hey, we need to change up how we're doing police brutality. Yeah. I see hope in America's police brutality change if we had all female police squadrons.
Ooh.
I've never thought that idea till right now, because if we, I trust the female energy to do that. I feel that's something that needs to be a lot more power in America. How can you have a Statue of Liberty, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean,
True, the Statue of Liberty is of a woman, but then if you look at our history of presidents, it's all white men.
Yes.
And no ladies.
Yes, but on other news, we also so I happened to be scrolling through the news the other day. I hardly do that ever since Trump became elected. I've decided to
it's difficult to do that sometimes.
Choose to how I'm gonna get my news. I just happened to stumble on, and I saw in Tennessee there was a mayor who basically, you could say, turned herself in for criminal charges. Basically, it was $10,000 in theft for property. And
for property?
Yes, for property, with an affair with the police. And basically, when this came up in the court, she was only charged $11,000, 3 years probation, and she told the judge, thank you, I appreciate you.
She's pretty much being let off the hook, is what I'd say.
Yes, and then it also came up into...
$10,000 for property?
Yes, her paying $11,000, and then also...
So she stole?
Yes, pretty much. She was doing fraud within $10,000 of property, which comes into theft.
Theft, yeah.
Yes, and with her 3 years probation, because of how early she was able to turn in that money, or how on time or whatever, basically her 3 years of probation is going to be uncensored, unfiltered. Basically, there's no one going to be watching her, unsupervised, as they say. She's white,
and she still gets to keep her job.
No, she was like, goodbye, everyone.
Okay.
She turned herself in and everything. She went out with a bang, and she gave out a Christian apology and a God here, and stay strong, and it interesting red themed speech in my opinion.
Mm.
But I'm just bringing this up just because I mean in America, you know, we have to reflect what can happen and what's going on. It is Information Friday. But how does that? Did you read up on that story? How does that?
It just like how it makes me feel. Just how, you know, I am part of this, you know, race of white people, and I try to do my best to stay woke and like keep updated and be empathetic to communities that have been marginalized and given the short end of the stick in the past. And it's just that and I gotta say, the reason why racism hasn't been abolished in America is because white people aren't willing to put in the work and the effort to confront what they did and be held accountable for it and reconcile it.
I don't like to generalize because within my own life of being a person of color, you know, there are definitely some white people in my life who I just would consider family or very close friends, very close to my heart any day. Is it a very small number? Yes. Am I very, very highly untrustworthy in public spaces? Yes. Am I very highly uncomfortable in public spaces most of the time? Yes. Do I speak Spanish when I get uncomfortable in public spaces? Yes. But, you know, I don't like to generalize and, you know, but I will say to counteract that, to comment or to intrigue with you, is that I do see sometimes some pockets of people who, they want to claim to be educated and woke, and then not only that, and do they have their little research, but instead of, you know, more research and more concentration of being an activist, they put more concentration on being invested with the culture, such as dressing the fashion, listening to the music, you know, we're smoking back, doing just investing, you know. But it's interesting because it's not the highlights of black culture, you know, where it's black excellence. It's the low ghettos and ratchets. It's just at the really worst part to me, you know. For example, my shirt right now, Tyler the Creator, that's a black rapper that I have been listening to since I was a child and following him for years. And, you know, now that, because of how pop culture he's become within Americans' young rap culture, now you can see white kids that their families make over $50,000, $100,000 a year, live in these beautiful houses or whatever, all the way in Milpitas, Danville, all these places, but still claim this culture, do this substance, and say this N-word, and are down with the people. And that's something I've noticed very, very growing more within America's white culture because of social media and how much of black culture is now shared. You know, you could just because of how much everything's being shared, people think now that how much they're seeing it and how much they're being exposed to it. Because there's certain things, you know, black people are just doing just around black people. But of how just loose things have gotten and how publicized things have gotten, you know. Now everyone wants to drink the Kool-Aid, but sometimes you don't know what the flavor of the Kool-Aid is. So you just got to sit back and just watch other people drink the Kool-Aid. But that's none of my business.
On a lighter note, congratulations to the first black president of the Harvard Law Review.
Yes.
So basically, it's been like 130 years, and only now Harvard brings in a woman of color. It's like really exciting for me, but it's also kind of like it took this long.
Well, yes. Within others, there has been a black male and other diversity groups, as they say. But no, this, again, makes me very happy. This makes me see, again, the matriarch society I keep bringing up.
Yeah.
And to have a black woman in charge of a law part, that makes me happy just for the fact of, I mean, we see America's law as, that's one of the deepest rooted problems, I would say, to America's racism.
Because there's these elitist white families that are like, you know, wealthy enough to send their children to law school in the first place, and then so basically white people are, you know, controlling the criminal justice system.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, that plays into it very much so. It's very interesting.
Her name is Ameme. Her last name is Ameme. And I think one of the interesting facts is it's been 27 years since the first black man was the president of Harvard Law, which was Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So,
So
Michelle was never president, is what I meant. Like, I would have expected her to be like president of like Harvard Law School
no,
as well.
Barack Obama, 27 years prior, was the president of Harvard Law. And the first woman was Susan Estrich.
Mm-hmm.
She was elected to the position 41 years ago. And since then, subsequent presidents have been female, Hispanic, Asian American, openly gay, and black.
Okay, so that's more
Yes.
progressive than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's just,
Okay.
you know, I'm looking at her right
So
now.
we're just celebrating the women, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't mind at all with her being president of America. I'm gonna just put the energy out there.
Of
right now.
America, okay.
I mean, if Obama can do it and she's doing it right now,
All right.
there's
Kick
no,
her on up there.
Like I said, like this is exactly what needs to happen, and I don't want to. Now, this is just a thought that came to me, and I'm just gonna say it as is, but like, it's interesting to think of if Hillary tried to be president and then if she tried to be president and she succeeded. Like, we didn't have Hillary first, but then we had, you know, a black woman do it, and she was able to succeed before a white woman. That makes me very, very, I don't know.
Well, get the Republicans on your side, and she's in.
I mean, well, what Obama even said within his what we have to reflect on is he didn't say, you know, there's no black Democrats or there's no gay. No, there's no such thing as a non-black Republican. There's no such thing as a non-gay Republican. Basically, that, you know, Republicans come in all shades and everything else, and that's what kind of, you know, allowed for some exception. And then, of course, after the 4 years and certain things happened, it got tighter for the second run. And then after that, well, I mean, we all know the end result of that. But speak on you know, back to this. I'm very, very happy to see.
Yeah, congratulations to her.
Yes.
Her face looks like she means business. Like, she's gonna run this.
Oh, yeah, she's serious. And before we close out, since we are talking about women, International Women's Day was yesterday, I just want to bring up one woman in entertainment news. I don't know if you guys even remember or if you ever watched The Cosby Show. Well, there was a girl on The Cosby Show named Lisa Bonet.
Of course.
In the beginning. So Lisa Bonet, throughout the whole time she left The Cosby Show, never really talked about her experience on the show, but we all know that she left a couple of times. And she's just now speaking out on the allegations against Bill Cosby. And according to blogger Love B. Scott, she says that karma will get you every time. So that's just an entertainment tidbit since we're talking about women today.
All right, well.
This was Information Friday with Anna Illis and
Hamero Smoon.
Thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. You guys will hear us next
Only
week.
on KOSARadio.org, where minds, words, music, and rhymes meet.